Next, let me invite to the stage one of our partners, somebody we've worked with for a few years, and actually somebody who we shared a similar conversation at FutureLink Barcelona, riffing a little bit off of the conversation that Brian and I just had about you have these ideas, you want to get started on digitalizing and orchestrating, et cetera, but you have all these other projects going on, and how do you really navigate that thicket? So let me invite Janel from Clarkston to the stage.
Well, before we actually get started, I wanted to end our presentation by just saying what Brian said.
Yeah.
It was
Brian teed this up nicely.
Yeah. But also, there's mention of Kinaxis. Kinaxis is a TraceLink partner who is also at the event here, and any other Kinaxis customers, I know they'd be happy to talk with you. So the topic of our session today is how to enable supply chain orchestration while supporting SAP ECC to S/4HANA migration. I think the first thing I want to do, Janel, is to basically broaden it a little bit and say that this is a major ERP migration, but the same sorts of thought processes would apply whether you're moving to a Microsoft Dynamics or any other ERP system,
Yep.
or any other really major enterprise system change in the
This
organization.
just happens to be the topic of conversation given the transition and the timeline around SAP today. You know, when we start to think about SAP, you know, there's other migrations that are occurring or implementations that are occurring, very similar to what Brian was talking about. So this is just the example that we're looking at. So I guess I'll introduce myself very quickly. So very nice to meet everyone. Clarkston Consulting is one of the leading management and technology consulting firms. We're headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we service the life sciences, consumer products, and retail industries. We're very focused in those industries and really looking at the solutions that support all the operations related to those organizations, helping them really look at their business challenges and what do they need to do to achieve their business goals. We are a privately held organization, and we've been lucky enough to work with our clients for the last 34 years that we've been in business. So kind of exciting to be here and talk about what we've seen in the life sciences industry specifically.
And you have a major focus on SAP, of course.
We have a major focus on SAP, yes.
And I think we were talking last night, we've actually known each other for 18 years.
We've known each other for 18 years.
So almost the whole length of time I've been working with Shabir and the team at SupplyScape and then TraceLink.
Yeah.
Okay. The second piece of the introduction also relates back to something that Brian was talking about, which is a slide that was introduced by one of our board of directors, George Lado, at the FutureLink Barcelona event. He calls this his big kahuna. So George was CIO of a major healthcare manufacturing organization and uses this to effectively plan his IT moves for the year, if you like.
Yeah.
And we were talking beforehand about this as being something that Clarkston has seen a lot and helped organizations develop.
Yeah, so a lot of times when we start to work with our clients, we start to look at what is their roadmap for their business? What are the business objectives that they're trying to accomplish? And then where are they from an architecture and solution perspective to support that from a digitization? And then where are their gaps? Where are their opportunities? And then where are they already operating, where they need to be to achieve those goals? So I love this model that George presented because it really shows the heat map of where things are good, where there's challenges, and where they need to focus. So we start there and start looking at those and then help organizations really build that roadmap to how do you start to achieve these business goals and how does that occur over time? You know, and Brian alluded to that, like there's a map for the next 6 years of how they're trying to accomplish these steps. But when you look at a heat map like this, that may not fit in there, especially if you're thinking about like, where am I today, given some of the global challenges that are in place and how dynamic those global challenges are for a supply chain. So it may change that dynamic.
But I think when George Lado presented this slide, and also when Brian was talking in the previous session, you can't ignore certain boxes, even if you've got a major project like an ERP upgrade occurring.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Because as that journey is occurring, and depending on the size of the organization or the complexity of that ERP transition, you still have business challenges that are occurring. And I think that that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about here, for sure. So, you know, specifically when you're looking at that SAP upgrade, like what are some of those best practices as you're thinking about your business and where you want to go and how you want to achieve them? And I think if you go to the next slide, we start to talk about like thinking that through in some of the lessons that we've learned. First is kind of back to that big kahuna. Like, what is our landscape? Where does ERP play in our landscape, and where are all the ancillary solutions that they play? Where is that system of record for the data, and then where is that integration occur? So that you have a full visibility to your data flow and how that supports your business operations. And I think it's one of the mistakes that organizations sometimes make, is not taking a step back and looking at what is that data flow? How is that operation, and how does that kind of sit in our current landscape? And then what's that vision for the future? And how does that then align with our business objectives and what we're trying to accomplish? We sometimes get very focused on the solution and not what benefit those solutions are going to provide and how that's going to help us achieve our objectives.
And I think Brian's point, again, from the previous session, was that sometimes there's an opportunity to actually do some tactical enhancements while you're making a big upgrade like this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because you may have an integration point or a lack of an integration point today that could be a very simple or easier transition to while you're doing the upgrade that you're not thinking about. So really thinking about that full landscape is incredibly important. Like, here's our portfolio, here's what we're looking to do, here, how can we go along that journey and get there?
And I think, again, just before we came on stage, you were talking about a project that you've been working on feverishly for the last few months, where a company didn't just upgrade their ERP system, but other systems as well.
Yeah, they really looked at doing not only the migration to S4, where they did what is called a greenfield implementation. So they were on ECC and they re-implemented S4, but they also implemented CRM, they implemented a PLM solution and all the integration points with that, as well as, I think it was somewhere around 20 ancillary solutions and integrations at the same time. But what we did prior to that project is really looked at, okay, what is that landscape supposed to be? Where are benefits? We even looked at like, okay, we know that this is going to be a throwaway integration given the long-term journey, but this solution provides the benefit that we need today. We'll keep it in place and then we'll move on. So I think that's an important component.
Very good.
Yeah. So the next thing that I think is super important, and we talked about this, is your data. And Brian talked about this as well. The opportunity to take the time and really look at your data, harmonize that data, normalize that data, get the proper data governance in place is incredibly important if you really want to make a difference, not only in your ERP solution, but in your ancillary solutions as well. You know, when you think about AI and where you want to get to, if your data is not clean, your AI solutions will hallucinate, right? We've heard about hallucinations in AI, and that comes from bad data or improper data, or the data not being where it needs to be. So when you're looking at that SAP or ERP upgrade or solution, really taking and investing in the time for your data and your data quality is important.
And we talked about it from a supply chain standpoint as well, ensuring that your data is accurate and ready for supply chain applications.
Yeah, well, because too, when you think about it, your supply chain applications and then your partners within the supply chain. So your data that you're providing to them, the data that they're providing back, and all of what you're trying to look at from an end-to-end supply chain has to be accurate. Otherwise, you really don't have good visibility to where you're at, how things are actually going, and what you need to do to make those improvements.
So I know with a lot of the Mint projects that we've embarked on, ensuring the quality of the data from the enterprise systems is one of the key things that leads into a successful project.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the foundation.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of thinking too, then, okay, so now we've got like what our landscape looks like. We've got what our data, we're investing in our data. But this, I think one of the other challenges organizations often have is they're thinking about, and I'll talk about SAP specifically, I'm looking at this deadline that I need to get to for S4, and I'm thinking about this from a technical perspective. And I'm not taking a step back and saying, how can this help my business? I'm very focused on the technical components of it, but where do I kind of go from a business perspective? So if you can flip to the next slide for me. Graham, I appreciate it. You know, so really thinking about this migration broader than just a technical perspective. What does it mean to the organization? How can I really address some of the biggest challenges that I have within my organization through this migration? Is it just purely getting my data clean, right? Taking this opportunity to take a step back, harmonize my data, get a master data governance process in place? Or is it really starting to drive some business value with some new solutions where I know that over the course of the next 3 years, I'm not going to start to meet certain business objectives, very similarly to what Brian was talking about previously. But are there opportunities to actually drive that business benefit today with new solutions and new opportunities?
So as customers are looking at this S4HANA migration or any other ERP migration, what percentage of them are looking at adding value as being the key driver to the migration versus just we've got a deadline from our vendor when they're going to cease support of the previous version? What's the approximate split?
Yeah, so I can only talk about it from our client's perspective, but it's probably a 50-50 split as to how they're looking at it. Like, I need to just get there, right? Versus where am I at today, and what does that overall value look like? And that's, again, kind of really stopping and taking a step back and saying, okay, well, maybe today I need to do just that technical upgrade, but what are some of the other components that I can start to put in place so that the business is really driving forward what they need?
So basically, 50% is a missed opportunity.
Yes.
Right? So
Yeah,
everyone should be looking at the opportunity to add value as they do that.
Yeah, you know, because one of the things we hear from our business partners is, you know, well, IT is not giving me what I need. It takes years for them to give me the business benefits that I'm looking for. So how do we start to drive all of that together in a realistic roadmap, leveraging some of the new tools that are out there to really get after that, while you know you have to have that core ERP solution in place to kind of drive some of those business operations, right? So, you know, again, kind of really thinking strategically about where your organization is at with ERP and how you go forward to lead that transformation, driving some of those business challenges out of that and really meeting them from an objective perspective. So,
very good. And I think this one is actually going to take us a while to actually discuss this slide. So why don't you start off with the slide, and then we'll get into discussion.
Yeah, so you know, one of the things that we're all talking about today is that transparency in the supply chain, right? So how do we get that end-to-end transparency, that resilience within our supply chain? And it's not just about where am I at from a manufacturing perspective, where is my finished good, has my finished good made it to the pharmacy, but it's also where are my raw materials? How are my raw materials funneling to my manufacturing facility or my CDMO, and through that process, and really driving that visibility. So when you think about it from an ERP core and then going out to those other solutions, now you're integrating with all those different partners. And that's where those point-to-point solutions or, that opportunity to get real-time visibility to it has been lacking, right? So we're working towards it. It could be, an hour delay or a couple minutes delay, but how do we start to really drive some of the metrics and the data and get that full visibility so that I know at any given point in time where my raw materials are at, where my finished goods are at, and where is it along the lines. And then you and I were talking about earlier, that's become even more important given the supply chain challenges that we're seeing here in 2025. We saw them in 2020 through COVID,
yeah.
and now we're just seeing another variation of those challenges with the tariffs that are.
The T word.
Yeah, the T word that's out there.
And so that is causing a lot of companies to rethink their whole business, driven
Yes.
by a supply chain change they're likely to have to make. And I think you said there was an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning.
Yeah, with everybody, I think the number, and please forgive me because I don't remember exactly what it was, but just everybody changing their projections or pulling projections for the rest of the year, just given the state of the industry today. And at the center of that, right, is our supply chains. And so it makes it more imperative today than ever that we have good visibility across that supply chain. And you're not going to be able to wait until the ERP implementation finishes in 3 years to get that transparency that
So
you're
this one
looking
has a
for.
global driver that's actually probably more important than actually updating your
Yeah,
system, ERP.
absolutely.
And this comes back to topics like onshoring
Yeah.
and the resiliency of your manufacturing network and supply network.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I think I was talking to someone over dinner last night, or the first night, was about opting to have two CMOs to provide resilience in your network, and yet both CMOs relying on the same back-end raw material supplier.
Yep.
So something happens with the raw material supplier, it doesn't matter that you've got two CMOs, they're both not going to be able to help you solve the problem.
So you both have the opportunity for a stock out because you're still trying to deal with it at the front end. So
Have you actually, I'm
yeah,
probably sure that you've had clients come to you with this problem set.
yes, absolutely, multiple times. And what we have to start with is really getting that visibility, right? So I'm going to go back to data and how important data is, and truly understanding where you are and where your partners are at within this, and driving towards those metrics that you need. But again, you can't hit those metrics if you don't have good visibility to the data or good data that's being reported on so that you can truly show it. And do you have access to all the information? So, if you're thinking about within your own four walls, but you're not looking out to your partners to get transparency of the information that they have regarding your products or the raw materials that you're seeking to purchase to be part of that manufacturing process, then you can't really get true visibility and transparency across your supply chain.
And in our previous discussions, we've talked about some of your SAP clients and the lack of maturity or broad nature of their supply chain solutions.
Absolutely. So, and that comes down to, again, what have they digitized versus what is still very manual for them, and then how have they automated that? So are they leveraging the tools to the best of their abilities and really keeping up with the changing tools that are out there? So technology has gone leaps and bounds from where we were 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And are you able to keep up with that given where your business is at? And that's a challenge for all organizations right now, because you're trying to run your business, you're trying to implement these new tools to digitize. So what is the path of least resistance, right? So that you can get that full visibility, you can get it off of paper. It's surprising still to me the number of organizations that are operating on paper and Excel. the favorite supply chain tool, I think it's called, and financial tool. I hear a chuckle because, yeah, we all know that is our favorite tool of choice.
And so one of the things that I'm not sure everyone in the audience would be familiar with or aware of, but maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, TraceLink put on a webinar specifically for SAP customers that are using Ariba for their existing B2B infrastructure, and talking about some of the complexities and the limitations with Ariba, which was obviously developed many years ago for a slightly different purpose, and how front-ending an Ariba system with TraceLink Mint actually opens up B2B to a much broader set of customers and partners, but also provides a broader set of transaction types as well, which gives you that opportunity for greater visibility.
Yeah.
And this is one area where I know TraceLink and Clarkston will be working with clients on projects around this.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for a number of organizations to, really minimize the effort to get that visibility through that one-point integration, right? So now you're not integrating to each of your individual partners, as we've talked a lot about through FutureLink, but really that one integration point that then you're sending out to all your partners and bringing that information back in. It's a phenomenal opportunity for organizations to really drive benefit quickly.
All right, I think it's just another example of this standard TraceLink model of connect once.
Connect once.
Yeah.
Which is not something we've seen in the industry.
And for those in the audience that aren't aware of this, you can actually use AI on the TraceLink website to find the webinar. And if you really want to go deep on it, Dan is here at the front and can gladly occupy 20 minutes of your time talking about this solution.
Yeah.
The last one I wanted to talk about, which again is something specific that we're doing together for our SAP clients, is working on a standard integration model where, Clarkston's got experience. Perhaps you could talk about your experience of doing integrations like this for SAP clients.
Yeah.
Talk about.
So, we've been, like I said, we've been in business for 34 years, and that business started with SAP. So we've been building SAP integrations for 34 years with our clients. And so we're taking that knowledge and that capability that we have to really expand on that with the Mint technology to drive kind of that end-to-end visibility with that one-time integration. So based on what we know and some of the things that we've done for our specific industries with some of the accelerators that we've put into place, is working with TraceLink to also build that accelerator with Mint so that you've got those integration points that are a little bit more out of the box to Mint and right there for you, that we're just tweaking based on your individual solutions.
And so this is something that the two companies will be working on, and we'll talk more about this certainly by the time we get to Barcelona, hopefully much earlier than that.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's just important that TraceLink as a company establishes these integrations with the enterprise systems that all of our customers actually have.
Yep.
And obviously, Clarkston has the specific SAP experience, but we have similar integrations that we're developing with Kinaxis for supply chain planning, with our partner Genpact. And then we have partners that focus on other ERPs and have specializations there as well. So this is going to be a central focus of the partner mission at TraceLink, is to work on such integrations. So if anyone in the audience has a system that we'd like to talk about and how we work with Mint, then we'd be happy to engage in those discussions with you.
Yeah.
So we have just a few minutes left.
Yeah.
You want to give a few closing thoughts?
Yeah, my closing thoughts are: understand your landscape, understand your data, understand what your challenges are today, and really start to tick those off. And don't let yourselves be limited by the ERP or the big kahuna in the room, right? Really strive towards how can I leverage some of the tools that are out there, like Mint, to drive business value sooner.
Very good. And I'd like to finish by thanking you again for joining me on stage.
Yes.
Barcelona, Boston.
Yeah.
We need another B. What's next?
We'll have to wait and see.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Janelle.
Yep.